So just in case you're not super interested, I figured I'd give a run through because I know this video is super long. Today we made peach butter, we made peach peel jelly, and we made peach peel syrup. So if you're interested in figuring out how to make any of those three things, then you definitely want to tune in for this video. If not, hopefully we'll catch you on the next video and there's something else you want to see. Like I said, if you want to see something in particular, go ahead and hit me up in the comments and I will try to make it happen. I know I have a request in for peach pie, or for pumpkin pie, which that'll definitely be on my fall list for sure. I already have some fresh pumpkin that's in the freezer waiting on me. So, and maybe we'll also show you how to process some regular pumpkin and to get it started to make a fresh pie. Good morning. So as promised, this morning I am starting to work on my peach butter. So the first thing I do with peeling peaches is, I know some people do an X on the bottom and they drop it into a pot of boiling water for 60 seconds and then they put it in the cold water to reverse it, and the skins are supposed to fall off. Number one, what I don't like about that is you're pre-cooking your peaches. It works for tomatoes because you're going to be doing sauce and you're cooking them down and you've got 4 or 5 hours in. But with peaches, you know, now I am making butter, so I'm kind of doing the opposite with this. But with peaches, typically it's a fast boil and then you're done. So I don't really like the idea that they get mushy right off the bat. So I do it the old-fashioned way. Typically what I do is I have a bunch of them and then I pull the pits out, throw them away, and then you just got a tray full of halved peaches. Not super exciting. Peaches are a little bit more time consuming. You know, I've got, with apples, I've got my peeler that I got from Pampered Chef. It makes it a lot simpler. Peaches do take a little bit longer, but you know, it's totally worth it in the middle of January when it's disgusting out and snowy, and I can pull a jar of one of these out and it just tastes like summer all over again. So totally worth it for me. So with peach butter, what I do is, a lot of the recipes you're gonna find on the internet are gonna tell you to puree your peaches down and then throw them in the crock pot. I don't do it like that because I feel like the natural sugars in peaches do the job for you a lot better. And if you puree them right away, you've got kind of that sharp bitterness like when you eat it with the skin on, in my opinion, and that never really goes away. So if you give it a good 4 hours in the crock pot with them just chunked, I think that the natural sugar breakdown also allows you to add less sugar. That's just my personal opinion. You know, I haven't really studied it, but I just feel like it gives it a better flavor. The first year I did it, I pureed. The second year, I just decided I'm not doing that. One year I did it with the skins on because I felt like being lazy. I won't ever do that again. The skins just give it kind of a funky flavor, so I won't ever do that. The other thing I'll say is, when I peel like this, my grandma, she would slap my fingers right now if she saw me doing this because I'm losing a lot of meat with it, a lot more meat than probably an old school lady in the kitchen would have. But because I'm using these skins to make the jelly and the syrup later, I don't feel as bad about that. So, you know, I'm not wasting it. Plus, even though the skins got cooked off and they kind of sat and steeped overnight, I am still gonna feed them to the chickens. I'm gonna let them dry out a little bit, and then the girls are gonna get them. They're gonna love it. There's still a lot of meat on them. Chickens are pretty smart. They actually won't really eat the peel. They're gonna leave the peel for me. When you give them a watermelon rind, you know, after you're done with watermelon, they will eat all of the pink meat, the flesh off of it first. Then they'll eat all the white flesh, but they'll leave that skin leg. They won't eat it. And mine actually don't like celery either. So they're kind of picky birds. So anyway, I mean, this is pretty much not super exciting. What I will do is I'll probably do a cut-in later of it cooking. I'm gonna give it 4 hours chunked. Then what I do is I put everything in the blender, puree it down, and then I give it another hour. I don't add the cinnamon to it until we get to that point. I just don't like the cinnamon taste long term. I think it almost gives it like a bitter or burnt taste. So I save that for the last 2 hours of cooking, the same with the sugar, because I will adjust. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I got for you right now. we will take a look in a few hours. Thanks. Hey guys, so I officially finished steeping my peach peels. I steeped them overnight in this big pot. So this is what I ended up with when I was done. It's basically just peach skin now. It does have a little bit of meat on it. Like I said earlier, I'm going to give that to my chickens. And I have since added my pectin and my sugar to my peach jelly here that's on the stove. It ended up being this gorgeous, gorgeous color. So I'm in good shape with that. Now I'm just waiting for it to sheet off the spoon, which we're almost there. We're pretty close. I definitely think we're going to have a good setup with this. With this, I doubled the recipe. It was supposed to be 3 cups of juice to 3 cups of sugar with a box of pectin. I actually doubled it, so I did 6 cups of juice and then 6 cups of sugar and 2 boxes of pectin. I actually don't use boxes. I started using the container like this, which I like a whole lot more. This is the equivalent of 3 boxes, so it's cheaper to buy it this way. And I like being able to add what I need. So it tells you right on the back what you need, as far as, you know, what's equal to a box. If the recipe calls for a box, I prefer to not use it that way. So with jelly, I always let it boil a couple of minutes just to really get it going. That way it activates the pectin. I think we're gonna be in good shape. Fingers crossed here. Yep, you see how it's dripping really slow off my spoon? It's actually setting up right on the spoon, so that is a really good sign. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. And let's pull it off the heat here for just a second. See if there's any foam, which I'm sure there's going to be on the top that we're gonna need to pull off. It looks like there's gonna be a good bit of that. So this strainer, I use it a lot for soups, and it works really, really good so that you're not standing there with a wooden spoon trying to get all that foam off the top. Pretty much one swipe and I am good to go. So put that over here. All right, so let's get ready to fill up our jam jars here. So I did decide to go ahead and do jelly jars. Usually I don't mess around with the smaller jars and I use pints. For this one I did decide because I just wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. So as you can see, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous color. I'm really happy with this. We're going to take it right up to the top here. I'm curious to see how many jars we're going to get, because basically with this, I mean, other than the cost of the pectin and the sugar, which sugar's really cheap, I have really nothing invested in this, well, and the cost of the jars. But I mean, basically what we're doing is we're taking the trash, we're taking the leftovers, the garbage, and we're making something with it. The corn cob jelly that I did last week, I was so happy with the way that turned out. It actually kind of reminds me of honey. My son, who does not like corn, says he can taste the corn in it. I don't taste the corn. I actually made French toast sticks over the weekend, homemade French toast, and I used the corn cob jelly on mine, the syrup that I had made. It's a much lighter flavor than, like, say, a maple syrup, and a lot less sweet. I tried some with the maple syrup and I almost couldn't eat it. So this is a good many jars. And I don't know if you can hear it in the background. We haven't really talked about who all lives here yet, but we have 4 dogs, and 2 of them are English bulldogs, and they snore a whole lot. So I don't know if you can hear Ripper in the background, but he is taking a snooze. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start the next process with this. So I always take a paper towel and I use vinegar rather than water. Used to use water to wash the rims of my jars, but I had a lady in a canning group say use vinegar, which makes sense to me because it's a fantastic cleaner. So especially with jams, it gets the sticky off. So you want to make sure that your rims are nice and clean. I used to think, yeah, whatever, but really your jars will not seal properly if you've got any sticky on there. I especially like to do it too if you're doing soups that have meat in it, because of the grease from the meat will keep your jars from setting up. So you'll see here in this bucket I have my rims and my lids. So you're going to apply your lid, you're going to hand tighten your ring, and they are very, very hot. I owned a bakery for a couple of years, and I really don't have a whole lot of feeling in the ends of my fingers. So most people would not be able to do this. Usually people use a tea towel to protect their fingers, but I don't have feeling in my thumb or forefinger, so it works just fine for me. Okay, so here's what you've got, okay? And then we're gonna turn around and process. I think the time is 10 minutes in water bath canner. My water bath canner is not hot yet, so I do need to prep that up. Once this is finished, I will show you the end product. While I have you here, we can kind of do, show you how our peach butter is doing. Okay, so we have the peach butter in the crock pot over here on this counter. So it's been cooking down now for about 2 hours. That's what we're looking at. I will grab a spoon here. All right, so here's what we've got so far. So we're definitely cooking down. We're in good shape. Like I said, those natural sugars are all gonna cook down. Now I'm gonna give this about 2 more hours. Then I'm gonna puree, I'm gonna add some sugar and some cinnamon and see where we stand with that. Let it cook for about 2 more hours after that. So it's about 6 hours total. Sometimes it takes 8 until you get to the right consistency. So I will see you guys back here in a couple hours. Thanks. Okay, so our peach jelly just popped. It actually only took 5 minutes in the water bath canner, and it is ready to go. So let me grab my jar grabbers here. So when you're canning, I don't really feel a need to have a lot of frou-frou utensils, that type of thing, but I do insist on this guy. I used to do this with a pair of tongs where I would pull it out of the water. You know, it worked, but it slipped and it was making me nervous, and by the end of the day my hand was really sore from grabbing so hard. So if nothing else in your canning, you know, arsenal, you should definitely invest in a jar grabber. So a single batch made 9 jars. I'm pretty happy with that. It was starting to set up before it went in. Now because we put it back into the hot water, it obviously turned back into liquid. I'm thinking it should set up without any issues, and I'm really happy with the color of that. I mean, that is just absolutely gorgeous. It looks like peach. It just reminds me just of that. Now, when I was straining this stuff out, I cheated a little bit. I don't have cheesecloth. I really should. I don't know why I don't. But what I did was I took a strainer and I actually took Bounty paper towels and lined the inside of the strainer, and I ran it through that way, and it definitely worked. I was really nervous about it because I don't typically make jelly, I make jam. So this is so clear, and I'm so happy with the way it turned out. I don't know how I managed to do that without cheesecloth. But you know what? If Bounty did the job, then I guess we'll keep rolling doing that. Okay, so peach jelly is done. We're gonna move on to the peach butter. We've had it in for the 4-hour mark. I have already pureed 2 batches. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the 3rd. So when I blend this, I never fill it more than 2/3 of the way full because the heat, it's really hot. Be careful with your blender. Make sure that you have a blender that can handle hot liquids. I have a Ninja, it does great with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on. And I am so
I'm not kidding when I tell you to be very careful filling it with the hot liquids. Last week I was making Bloody Mary mix, wasn't paying attention, totally overfilled my blender, and I had hot spewing Bloody Mary mix coming out of the top all over my hands. It hit me in the chest. It hurt a lot, so be very careful with that. All right, so I made a double batch with this. I could have made a single batch. It called for 15 ripe peaches. I probably put in about 30. So I have a lot more than you would typically have at the 4-hour mark. Usually at this point, you'd be cooked down pretty far. I'm not, because I doubled it. So because of that, I doubled my sugar. This is 3 cups of sugar instead of a cup and a half, and then 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. Now, it called for cloves and allspice as well. The first year I made this, I used what it called for, and I instantly regretted it because I felt like it was way, way, way too spicy for peaches. Peaches are so much lighter than apples, and I just really was unhappy with how spicy it tasted. I like the freshness of the way I make this. It still has a little bit of cinnamon in it. You know, you still got that butter, that little bit of spice to it, but it still holds that freshness that peaches are known for. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stir this through. If you have a whisk, you could use that. So because I doubled the batch, like I said, usually it's 3 to 6 hours. I always cook for the 6. I think what I'm gonna do is turn it up to high. It says just cook it on low for 3 to 6 hours. I think I'm gonna bump it up to high, give it an hour on high, see what we're looking like. At that point, I might turn it back down to low. I just know by sight when it's the thickness that I want it, when it's the color that I want to keep that nice bright orange. If you overcook it, it will turn brown. It'll look just like apple butter. I don't want that. It's peach. It's supposed to be pretty. So that's where we're at with that. So I guess in a couple hours, we will check back in and see how this is looking. And then we'll go ahead and process this in 1/2 pint jars. And then we will also take a look at the jelly to see how it turned out. Thanks. Hey guys, welcome back. So if you remember, where we left off was peach butter's cooking away in the crock pot. The peach jelly is done. So now I'm getting ready to work on the peach syrup. So these were my peels, okay? So when I put them in the pot, it was about halfway full in this pot. It's a pretty big one. I filled it just till it was covering the peaches, the skins, and I left it boil on a medium for about an hour and a half. I left it on there for a while. So boiled it down till everything was nice and pretty colored. So now I drained it, I strained it, and put it back in. It ended up being 14 cups of juice. So you have to add the exact same amount of sugar, which seems like a whole crazy lot. I found a couple of recipes. One actually said to double the amount of juice with sugar, and I just wasn't willing to do it. So I at least am meeting it halfway. So I'm doing 14 cups of juice, 14 cups of sugar, boiling it down for about 3 minutes. My timer is just about ready to go off here. I've kept it at a simmer. You got to watch this very carefully. If you've ever done candy on the stove, this is basically just sugar water. So it will come up and boil over really quick, and it will burn you so badly if you try to touch it. So your best bet, I left the lid on, but I was right there, standing right there. It immediately started to bubble up to the top. I took the lid off, pulled it off the burner, then sat it back on without the lid on. I am going to go ahead and let it cook a little bit longer because I'm not real happy with the consistency yet. I mean, I know because I didn't double the sugar, it's not going to look like syrup immediately. What I'm going to do is leave a teeny bit, little bit in the spoon, just like this, and I'm going to let it sit right here and see how thick it thickens up pretty quick. It should. If we're there, then I'll go ahead and pull it off the burner. But I mean, nothing says you can go thicker. You know, you want to leave it on as long as you want as far as thickness goes. I mean, it's going to reach a point where it'll stop thickening up any further. But I mean, you could go halfway down from here. Now, I'm okay with it being a little bit thinner because it's a fruit syrup. It's not going to be like a maple syrup. It's never going to be like that. But the flavor is really fantastic. I already tried it. I mean, it's really sweet, but it's really peachy, and the color is beautiful. I know you really can't tell in the pot. Once we get it into jars, I'll be able to show you a little bit better. So, okay, let's go back to our spoon here. So if you'll see, that's pretty thick. I'm pretty happy with that. So I got it there by bringing it to a rolling boil and leaving it at a rolling boil, stirring constantly for 3 straight minutes. And then I'm just above a low right now. My stove runs really, really hot. So I take that into consideration. So I think we're ready to go ahead and get this jarred up. So I will be back in just a minute. Okay, so here's our peach butter. We let it cook down for the 4 hours, then we pureed in the blender. We added our sugar and our cinnamon, and then we bumped it up to high for an hour because it just didn't look like it was gonna get done because we did the double batch. So this is after an hour on high. I'm feeling pretty confident about this. I'm actually gonna pull it off the heat. Normally I would do 6 hours on low, but I was being impatient, so you know, we got it all done. So I also promised you I would show you our jelly, and it turned out great. It's set up, so we're in good shape with that. And then the syrup is right here behind that. It got thinned out. It got thinned out a little bit when we were processing, but that's to be expected. It should thicken up a little bit. So I'm almost finished here. I'm gonna go ahead and get my peach butter put up into our pint jars here, and I'm gonna go ahead and process, and then we'll meet back here and we will discuss exactly what we got for our money at the end of the video. So we've reached the end. In the end today, we processed 9 half pints of peach jelly. We did 11 pints of peach syrup, and we have 7 pints of peach butter. So between yesterday and today, add to those numbers, we did 4 pie fillings. We did 4 pints of regular peach jam, and then I have 7 half pints of habanero jam as well, that are sitting kind of waiting in the wings. So considering that today, the only things we really paid for was the peach butter right here, and then the rest were supposed to be the garbage. And I would say that's a pretty awesome deal. I would totally recommend doing syrup and jelly, especially the jelly. The kids were already raving about it. They've had the butter before and love it, so that's why I make it every year. But the syrup, definitely a new thing. You would be great on pancakes used actually as a syrup, but I'm also going to use it to make sun tea. So I always make just a regular tea. So now I'll be able to do a peach sugar water tea. I think that'll be awesome. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate the views. Sorry if this video was a little long-winded. We had a lot of projects going today, so in the future it probably won't be quite as intimidating and quite a long video. But thanks for sticking with me if you're still here.